I'm going to teach you how to make this leotard. Hi, I'm Coach Christa and I'm a professional leotard maker. Is that a real job title? This video is going to show you how to make a leotard with a home sewing machine. If you have a serger and a cover stitch machine, check out my other video. Throughout the video, I'm going to go through steps, and in the description, I'm going to put the step and the time that it starts at, just in case you want to skip to that step. Step 1, cutting. In my supplies video, I tell you that you can use a rotary cutter or scissors, and your fabric needs to be a 4-way stretch, which means it stretches this way and this way. And I use like a spandex or a sport lycra. Let's get cutting. This is mine. I really like it. If you are using a rotary cutter, make sure that you are cutting on your board. And if you are using scissors, make sure you have your pins. So grab your pattern and you want it to be the same angle as the grain. So the grain is going this way. So our pattern is this way. So the grain will be up and down like this. If you need more information on the grain part and how that is, let me know and I will make a separate video on that. Put your pattern in place and put the weight down. If you want extra security so that it doesn't move, you can use pins and just pin it through the pattern into the fabric. And you can do this just on the edges, as many as you like. I've done this quite a few times, so I don't use the pins, but feel free to use them. Now it's time to cut. Make sure whatever pattern you're using, it has a seam allowance. And if it does not have a seam allowance, make sure you add that to your pattern. And there we go. We have our front. Now let's do the back. If you were to use scissors, make sure you pin your pattern to your fabric and cut. And there we go. Step 2, putting the front and the back together. If you're going to pin the front and the back together, you're going to do the side seams, the shoulder seams, and the crotch seam. I wish there was a better word for crotch, but that's literally what it's called. The sewing settings that you want to use for your home sewing machine would be a straight stitch and stretch. So this needs to go over there. So when you're sewing your side seams and your shoulder seams and your crotch seam, I wish there was a better word for crotch, but there's not. You want to sew them 1/4 of an inch. So I have my handy dandy little ruler, because mine does not tell me where 1/4 is, so I'm just going to measure from the needle, and about right there is good. When you're sewing, make sure you're not pushing it or pulling it back. You just want to guide it gently. But when you start, you do want to take these little tails and pull them a little bit just so it can get a good start. And see, my fabric kind of went down in there, so that's why you want to pull it. And if it does happen, just really kind of tug at it so you can bring it out. And again, if you do need to use pins so that this doesn't happen, that's fine. I can usually like adjust it before it gets to the needle. As you can see here, my front and back are off just a little bit, which is okay. It's not going to make a huge difference. We can fix that later. If you want to do a back stitch, which is basically securing your thread and your whole stitching in place so it doesn't unravel, that's fine. But with a stretch stitch, you don't necessarily need to do that. Go ahead and lift your foot, pinch the end and bring it out, and then cut it. Now you have a straight stitch that is stretchy, which is the alternative to a serged seam. Step 3, elastic. I'm going to show you how to measure, cut, and sew. Measuring. So with measuring your elastic, you don't want it too tight or too loose. So I'm going to show you a couple ways to get the best measurement for you. The first way to measure is to get your favorite leotard. If you don't have a leotard, get a pair of underwear and your favorite sports bra. That should be okay. You will need a measuring tape. So what you're gonna do is take the elastic on your leotard, lay it flat just like that. Ooh, I rhymed. You're gonna measure it. I got about 8.5, so 8.5 times 2 is 16, 17, and then I'm gonna add a 1/2 inch for the seam allowance because we will be sewing it and it will overlap. And you're going to do this with your arm and your neck. And make sure you add a 1/2 inch to the arm and to the neck. Now the second way to measure if you don't have a leotard or a bra or underwear is get your measuring tape, and you're going to take that and go where the elastic would be, and you're probably going to need help with the other side. And you're going to do that on the neck, and then you're going to also do it on the leg hole. Make sure you add a 1/2 inch to each one for the seam allowance. And that's your elastic measurement. Cutting. Now we're gonna measure and cut. And done. Sewing. First we need to change the settings on our machine. You want it to be a zigzag, and then we don't want it to be stretched, so we need to change that. Now we're gonna sew them together. You're gonna take your elastic, and it's going to overlap about 1/4 inch. So we're gonna put it under the presser foot, overlap it about 1/4 inch. And if you need to use a pin to keep it in place, that's fine, just remove it before you sew. Bring down the presser foot, try and keep it in place. And now we're gonna use a zigzag stitch. Make sure you take the tails and pull them a little just to guide it through in the beginning. And you do want to back stitch, so we did a couple of stitches and now back stitch. So for me, it's this button. I push it down and I sew, and it will go backwards. So I'm going to back stitch and go forwards and back stitch again. And then you're going to manually put your needle down. And when I mean manually put it down. Bring your presser foot up, get your elastic, again 1/4 inch, right beside the other one, keep it in place, bring it down, sew, back stitch, forwards, back stitch, and manually put your needle down. And then do this with the rest of them. And bring them out. Cut them. And then they should look like this, all together. So what you're going to do now is you're going to just cut them apart. And then you have all your elastic. Step 4, attaching the elastic. This is where it gets tricky. You will need your pins for this. We are going to pin the elastic to the leotard. The part where the elastic is attached, that is going to go where the crotch seam is. So it'll go right behind it. And we are going to pin. Now, this is where it gets tricky. The other side will be pinned at the side seam. So if we were to measure this, the front is like 11.5 to 12. The back is like 9. So there's way more front than there is back. That means we need more elastic for the front than we do the back. So it won't be half and half. We need more elastic for the front than we do the back. So let's just estimate this. We're gonna put this on the side seam. We're gonna just pinch it. Now take the other side and pinch it, and we're gonna stretch it until it's even with the fabric. And I'm looking at this one, this to this side. So the back goes with the back, the front goes with the front. And we're kind of giving a feel for how much elastic is needed for the back and the front, because I don't have a specific number or ratio that you should pin this at. So now let's look at the front. So we stretch it until it gets straight with the front, and we're kind of gathering how much stretch is in the front and how much stretch is in the back. So, for example, if we did this ratio, this is a lot of fabric, and this is not a lot of elastic. So if we were to stretch, so see how thin that gets because it's being stretched so much? That's not what we want. And so if we were to do that on the front side, there would be like no stretch for the elastic. A lot of stretch in the back, not a lot of stretch for the front. So initially we want the same amount of stretch for the front and for the back. So you kind of have to play around with it and see where you think it would be best at. So what I like to do is go about halfway first, and then because the front is more than the back, I'll probably go like maybe about right here. So I'll put this at the side seam, and then I'll pinch it and kind of see where it's at. So when you stretch it, it kind of gets thinner. The elastic gets a little bit thinner. So now we go to the front and see how much is being stretched. I would say there's a little bit more in the front than in the back. So I'm going to put more in the back a little bit and then do that again and see if it's better. I would say the front and the back stretch is about the same. So now I'm going to pin it. And that one is finished. I know this part is very complicated, but you kind of have to do a trial and error and play around with it. If you do need extra help with this, let me know and I will make more videos. The neck is a lot easier, and I think so are the arms. The overlap for the neck, it doesn't matter which side it goes on, it just goes behind the seam. Now, on the other side, there needs to be more for the back than the front because the back has a larger dip. So we're going to do half and then give more to the back. And then we're going to pinch it and see. So the front looks about like this, and then the back looks about like this, and it looks pretty good. I think the front needs a little bit more, so I'm going to give a little bit more elastic to the front, and then try it again. I'd say that's good, so we're going to pin it. If you sewed your elastic together with the cover stitch machine, be careful with it so that it doesn't come apart. This is the arm elastic. You're going to put the part that is overlapped on the side seam, like right behind it. And when you pin it, try and pin through both of the elastics so that it secures it a little bit more. Now, find the middle of the elastic, which is about right here, and we're going to pinch that at the shoulder seam. So now you can see the back is pretty much even with the elastic, but the front, you have to pull it for it to be even. That means more elastic needs to go to the front. So I'm going to bring more elastic to the front, and then we're going to pull it again. So the back, I have to pull it just a little bit for it to be even. And the front, I have to pull it a little bit more. So again, I'm going to pull more to the front and try again. So I have to pull a little bit for it to be even in the back. And now in the front, that's about just as much in the front as there is in the back. So I'm going to pin it right there. This part is really tricky and you have to kind of play around with it. And I'm doing the best I can to explain, but it is kind of complicated to explain. If you have more questions about it, let me know and I would be happy to help you. For your settings, to attach the elastic to your leotard, you want a zigzag stitch and you do not want it to be on stretch. This part is a little complicated to explain. I will do my best, but if you still are a little confused, feel free to reach out to me and I would be more than happy to help you. The part where the elastic is sewn at, that is going to go under your presser foot. Put your presser foot down, put your needle down manually, and then take your pin out. Find the other pin. With your left hand, pinch it. You're going to pull your elastic until it is even with the fabric. So this is not even. You can see there's a lot of fabric. Now it is even. So you're going to take the elastic and the fabric, pinch it, let go with your left hand, and your left hand is going to help guide it through from the back. So make sure you are continuously pulling so that the elastic and the fabric are even together. Make sure they're even. With your left hand, make sure you have the elastic and the fabric, and you're going to help guide it through. When you get to your hand, you can let go. Make sure your needle is down. Find the pin again, pinch it, pull it so that the fabric and the elastic are even. Make sure your left hand is in the back, and sew. So now that we're close to the pin, put your needle down, take your pin out, find the other seam, so pull it until the fabric and the elastic are even, pinch it, use your left hand to guide in the back, and then sew. And yes, my front is a little bit longer than the back. That's okay. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, make sure your needle is down. Once you get back to the beginning, you're going to keep sewing for about 1.5 inches. And then you can backstitch. Take it out and cut. And then it's going to look like this. And if you're sewing and you notice that maybe there's too much elastic or there's like not enough elastic and you're pulling it a lot to be even with the fabric, you want to go back a step and change where your elastic is at. You may need to put more elastic to the front or more elastic to the back. So right now, I'm not even stretching it, and it's even with the fabric. If that happens for the entire length of the front, then you're going to need to adjust. But because it's just right here, that's okay. Step 5, what is it? Top stitching. Your machine settings are going to be the same for this from step 4. You will probably need your pins for this. This is going to be a little similar to step 4. You see how it's wavy? You want to pull, and then you're going to fold over, pinch, and then you're going to pin. And when you fold, make sure that the fabric is right next to the elastic. You don't want to have extra fabric like this. You can see that it's like bubbly and it's not up against the elastic. So make sure when you fold it, it's right up against the elastic. It's nice and crisp. pinch, and pin. So pull, fold, pinch, and pin. You want to start sewing where the elastics are sewn together. And just like on step 4, you do want to pull it just a little bit. So pull it a little bit, put it under the presser foot, and put the presser foot down, and then put the needle down. So since it's a zigzag stitch, the closest point will be right here, and that's about 1/4 of an inch. And just like in step 4, when we attached our elastic to the leotard, you're going to pull just a little bit until those wrinkles or the ruffles or gathers, whatever you want to call them, are gone. And you're going to take your left hand and you're going to bring the fabric to the left a little bit. We're not pulling it a lot, just enough to where the elastic will stay right up against the fabric. And with your left hand, you're going to go to the back again, like front and back, and just kind of guide it. So we're pulling it toward us, we're bringing the fabric to the left a little bit, and then sewing through. So pull it, bring it to the left a little bit, and sew. Now that you're coming back to the beginning, you want to keep sewing about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And I would backstitch on this. Pinch it and bring it out and cut it. And this is what it looks like. And there you have it. It's cute. And just a little reminder, if you didn't get this right on the first try, it's totally fine. Everyone has different learning speeds. Just keep practicing and practicing. Very rarely is anyone perfect on the first try of trying something new. Let me show you my very first leotard. Like, it has markings on it because it's all my corrections, but like, well, like what is this? This one is like so little. Oh, that's so bad. Look at all that gathering. And this one is like bigger. And I used different needles, like, oh, look at that. That is awful. If you need extra help, comment below and I will try my best to help you. Hope you enjoyed. See you later. Oh, my knees can't do that. Okay.